Welcome to the Selling from the Heart podcast on the From the Heart Business Network. You've joined a global movement of sales professionals who are dedicated to being authentic and building trust. We call it Selling from the Heart. Together, we're on a mission to bring sincerity and substance to the sales profession we all love. Get ready to be inspired and equipped as we join our hosts, Larry Levine and Darrell Amy.
If you love the Selling from the Heart podcast, then you know how much we value authentic leadership and building relationships with heart. But here's the thing. Great leadership doesn't stop with sales. It starts at the top with CEOs who inspire trust, create meaningful cultures, and lead with purpose.
That's why we're excited to invite you to get involved with the Culture from the Heart podcast. On Culture from the Heart, we celebrate CEOs who are transforming their companies by putting people first. And we're asking you to help us find them.
Do you work for an incredible leader? Know a CEO who builds culture from the heart? Nominate them to be interviewed on the show. Together, let's spotlight the leaders who make businesses thrive by leading authentically.
So head over to cultureFromTheHeart.com to submit your nomination today. Because when leadership starts with the heart, culture and success follow. Hello and welcome back to the Selling from the Heart podcast. Your co-host, Darrell Amy, here today with Larry Levine. What's going on, Larry?
Hey, what's not going on? Great seeing you. You know what? We always have a great time when we have guests on the Selling from the Heart podcast. This one's going to be extra special, Darrell.
This is going to be a gold medal episode. Just wait. You're going to be so excited. This is going to be a lot of fun. Hey, if you're new to the podcast, welcome. We're so glad you're here. You've joined a growing community of sales professionals and sales leaders that are dedicated to being genuine, being authentic, building trust. It's all the attributes, all of the ingredients of what we call selling from the heart.
Yeah, and I just want to give a special shout out to just a great sales leader, Sadie Lindell. You just lead a great team, a great district up in one of my favorite areas, Boise, Idaho. So continue to lead with the heart. I appreciate you.
Hear, hear. We are cheering you on. Well, our guest today is Joe Jacobi. He is an Olympic gold medalist, performance coach, author, and speaker, and good friend of Selling from the Heart. Joe's story is nothing short of inspiring. In 1992, he won gold in the C2 slalom canoe event at the Barcelona Olympics, the very first U.S. gold medal in whitewater slalom. He later brought that same passion for excellence to leadership, serving as CEO of the USA Canoe and Kayak Association, guiding the sport's national governing body through times of transformation. Well, today, Joe helps seasoned professionals and leaders navigate the rapids of midlife transitions. Using the powerful metaphor of riding waves, both on the water and in life, Joe shows us how to turn uncertainty into clarity, struggle into purpose, and change into momentum. Joe's approach emphasizes intention, rest, and alignment over the grind of hustle, offering a refreshing path towards growth and renewal. And he's here with us today. Joe, welcome back to Selling from the Heart. It's so great to have you here.
It is so great to be back here and see both of you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. We're in for a treat, Darrell.
Oh, we absolutely are. And as we get started, Joe, you are very familiar with the question we ask all of our guests. And I'm curious your answer today to what does it mean to you to sell from the heart?
Thank you so much. And it's funny, being a return guest, it's like I have to go back and compare my answer to what I've said before. But I think about this a lot today. And where I go on this question of what it means to sell from the heart is that I see so many leaders that are in their head. It's like we have these internal companions along with us on the journey, and the head is one and the heart is another. And we just got to find more ways to talk and give the heart a little bit more voice in the conversation, because the brain knows how to yell loudly and yell repetitively and not give the other companions that are on this journey a chance to speak. So what selling to the heart for me is just finding ways to get out of the head, get into our bodies, and really understand what we're feeling so that we can make better choices about connecting with ourselves so that we can better connect with others and serve them in ways that are meaningful to everyone involved.
Hey, this is good stuff, Joe. And I think just, in the nature of all this uncertainty that's going around the world, and we can insert all the, the uncertainties, I think it's ever so important now to connect to heart more than anything else. But what got you thinking about this right now? I'm just curious.
I think there are a couple of things, Larry. I think for those that are listening that don't know, I left the United States 8 years ago, and I've been living in the Spanish state of Catalonia in a little town called La Seu d'Urgell. And I love living where I live, but I think it also sort of affords me a certain outside looking in perspective of the world that I grew up in, the culture that I grew up in, the native language that I learned to speak but don't speak anymore. And so, you just get some outside looking in perspective of what the forces of energy are that I think are kind of creating gaps and barriers and resistance between the essence of who we are and where our heart really is. And so I have a lot of time to think about that because I'm not spending as much time speaking English and having the traditional conversations that I used to have when I lived in the United States, which isn't good or bad. It just gives me a different perspective and just sort of how I arrived at kind of reflecting on this topic quite a bit more. And I think in the end, what 8 years of living here has done is that it's just strengthened a relationship with myself, kind of a thinking about how I think kind of relationship with myself and exploring the feelings that I have, and allowing myself a chance to feel those a little bit more, and pairing that with finding more enjoyment in the activities that I choose to do. Any kind of activity, whether that's business, whether that's relationships, whether that's health and wellness, or whether that's work, I'm always also pairing that with how can I enjoy this process one more.
Oh, what a great question. How can I enjoy this process more? We are on a journey. We're all on a journey. I love that concept of the two companions on the journey, the head and the heart. But all of us are on a journey through life, and we hit moments in life that are turning points that we've all heard about. Midlife. And so some of us are there, some of us are on the other side of it, and some of us are approaching it. Doesn't matter. This topic that you're coaching leaders on today, I think, is such a relevant conversation, especially in light of the performance type of career that we've all chosen in sales. So I'm curious, what got you passionate about helping folks navigate midlife?
Well, it started with my own journey, Darrell, and where that kind of starts is just after winning a gold medal at the Olympic Games in 1992. So I was 22 years old at the time, and I wasn't preparing to win a gold medal. Like, my canoe partner and I were just preparing to do the very best that we could at the Olympic Games. And then that best performance for yourself turns out to be good enough to be Olympic champion and stand on the top step of the Olympic podium. And it is as if someone comes up with a crown and puts it on your head and then takes a cape and puts it around your shoulders. And it feels a little bit like that. And you start thinking how do I show up wearing this crown and cape that does justice to this thing that's been kind of bestowed upon me? And so for better or for worse, I kind of start very quickly to make some decisions about what kind of relationships I need to have and how I need to show up in the world and what I need to be correct about. And I don't want to say at 22, that's a good thing or a bad thing. What was really hard for me is to make those choices at 22 and then to basically suppress those choices and never really revisit them till I'm 49. And so this is my point to people. It's it's not just about the months and years that go by, but it's the decades that go by without us checking in on where we are. And by the way, don't feel bad for me. I mean, my first half of life was a really good first half of life. But when I was willing to go back and look at, some of those choices that really needed to be reevaluated and have some hard choices made about some of that in my personal life and my professional life, then it's led to this 6-year chapter. The last 6 years of my life have been, bar none, the best 6-year run of my life, personally and professionally. But it took having very difficult conversation with myself and, kind of fully feeling those feelings and really going back in time to see well, where did the bus kind of go off course and where did I fail to course correct? So if this conversation helps people to kind of revisit that, and especially younger people, which surprisingly, we can talk more about that, why they're interested in this conversation, then this conversation does exactly what it's supposed to do.
Oh, this is so good. And by the way, thank you for sharing. I got to zero in on something that you said, though, is your ability to ask yourself those difficult questions.
Yes.
And whether that be personal or professional growth, it's going to require us to ask those difficult questions. So if you can expand on this, I'd appreciate it. And I'm sure our listeners would, is what do difficult questions look like? What did Joe learn along the way?
Yeah, I think this actually really gets back to that question, what does selling to the heart means? Our brains are really good at putting, at suppressing ideas and feelings that we have, things that, we want to do, but we don't want to upset the apple cart, the things that really make us happy. And I think just as an example, Larry, one prompt that I use a lot in my life to help me revisit things that I believe to be true that just haven't been revisited in a long time. When I find myself stating something as if it were a fact, I will sort of catch myself in the moment and I just ask myself, could the opposite of that be true? And if the answer is yes, then I have to sort of change how I say something, to not state it as a fact, but say, hey, listen, for me, it's worked like this, but I could also see for someone else, it might be really different for them. And it's having that flexibility and that ability to catch myself, that has been really helpful to me. But when we get out of our heads and we do move into our heart, I think we become in a much better position to sort of say, where have I been neglecting the things that I really feel strongly about? Where, in my most important relationships, we do it there. In my work, we do it there. In my creativity, we do it there. In my health and wellness, because we do it there as well.
So powerful. And as we're talking, I'm thinking about one of the favorite authors and books that's kind of guided me through the journey in midlife. It's Falling Upward by Richard Rohr. And
love it.
Richard Rohr, just such a great book, Falling Upward. He talks about the first half of the life, building the container, becoming, this is who I am, and trying to, really black and white, and moving into a second half of life where you're kind of now living outside that container, or tearing the walls down and beginning to understand that there are other perspectives other than this rigid thing that we set up early in our adulthood. And when it comes to sales and sales professionals, I think this journey is really powerful as you're listening to talk about really being able to do what we talk about as selling from the heart, which is see the world through other perspectives, or as Lee Salz, our friends, talks about, empathetic expertise, and really being able to, and I hear that happening as you've been navigating this and are coaching other folks as well. Yeah.
And by the way, I love that you mentioned Richard Rohr's book. And by the way, we're going to talk about a little resource page at the end of this conversation. I want to get Richard Rohr's book on that resource page because it's so good. I think one of the conversations that I have with a lot of doctors that I coach, and I think this equally applies to people in sales as well, is that what happens is that in the first half of life, you sort of go through your work in a way that you're kind of going through it very methodically. You're thinking about, what does the industry want of me? What are the things I need to do to kind of jump up? And that's all great. That's a part of the process. But again, in that same way, like I made these these decisions after winning the Olympics. I never went back and revisit them. Mm-hmm. A lot of doctors that were taught certain things in med school, they never go back and revisit the way they were taught things. Salespeople don't go back and revisit things. And when they discover, like by the time they get into their mid 40s or even their early 50s, that they have this freedom to investigate and explore, stop doing like what you were doing all these years and focus more on legacy, focusing more on relationships, focusing more on service, focusing more on the bigger picture, that you don't need to jump through the same bureaucratic hoops that you've been jumping through the first 25 years of your career. But if no one ever prompts you to do that, how would you know to do that? And like, I will tell you, in the medical industry, nobody is telling the doctors this. And I suspect in sales, no one is telling, well, except for selling from the heart, no one is telling people in sales how to do this, because the machine just wants you to go out and behave the way you've always behaved since you were 25 years old.
Hey, I'm sitting here listening to all this, and of course my sales brain's working, Joe. My sales brain's working. I'm like going, I think what we're talking about could help with this complacency mindset and this burnout that a lot of salespeople go through, insert whatever stage of life they're in. But I look at that salesperson, that sales leader, somebody that's at that twilight of their career. Why not make it the best last 3 or 4 years by reigniting their passion and lighting their flame?
Larry, where the prompts can be for this conversation, and I think something that Selling from the Heart can really do for this community is, yes, what you just said sounds like the logical jump, but even if you're listening or watching this and you're a little bit skeptical, why not experiment with it? Like, what do you have to, like, just run these tiny little experiments and say, like, just take a small percentage of your time, energy, and resources and say, instead of pushing on the gas over here like I've always done, which I kind of get where that's going, I'm just going to put a little bit of time into things like serving, teaching, mentoring, coaching, relationship building, legacy building, and just see what the results are. I mean, I think the three of us have a good sense of what those results are going to be, but it's not for us to tell people what to do. We want more of the people in this community to feel it through behavior shift and action. So why not experiment with it? Like, that's exactly what elite athletes do. They don't just make blanket shifts into doing something new and different. They run small experiments to see if they enjoy it and to see if it works.
Yeah, I think this is so powerful, because in the first half of life, going back to just think about that box, sales is a really attractive career because you can build an identity, you can build an income, you can build a life. And I think we've all of us that have been in sales early on in our careers, we bought our first homes, we got all of the things. And then you reach this point in your sales career where things are going pretty well. And quite frankly, you can phone it in a lot of ways. And I think there are seasons in the middle of a sales career where all of us can say, hey, we lost momentum, we lost heart. And beginning to ask those questions to go, okay, yes, one more call, I get that. Yes, let's go do the sales thing. But what are the things that I could add into my life that would bring meaning and purpose to what I do? Because I'm past the buying the first house, second house, fifth car, whatever that, I'm past that. And I'm now on into beginning to recognize there's a season of life where I want to actually make an impact. And maybe I care more about giving back. And how can I work that into my sales career?
I love it. So, by the way, I think another book that we'll add to this list alongside Falling Upward is I had his name and I'm blanking on it. I'll think of it in a moment. But this author who writes that about first and second half of life, he said it's very common in the first half of life for people to ask the question, what does the world want of me? This is that stage where you're talking about where, you're finding who your people are, you're finding what your skills are, you're finding out, who your life partner is going to be, what does the world want of me? Mm-hmm. And then you sort of float into this period of like, what does my life want of me? And I think that really kind of wakes up the change. When I went on this path, by the way, and I was thinking, okay, I went through it and I found it to be like very enlightening process. If it was helpful for me around age 50, maybe other people in their late 40s, early 50s will be interested in it as well. Well, Darrell, what was so interesting about like one of the first people to show up in front of me was a young man who was in his mid-30s, he was like 33, 34 years old. And he had a hard relationship with sport that kind of came out of his relationship with high school sports. So it has been 15 years in the making. A really, really good guy. But this kind of hard relationship with sports was really getting in his way of like, finding happiness and health, in relationships and in creativity. And what he said when he came to me was, he said, look, I'm not at that stage yet, but I listened to you talk about it and I can see what my life is going to look like at 50 if I keep going down the same track that I'm on. And I don't want that. And so he became a client, and our only goal was to start shifting that a little bit. And I'll just give you an example of what we did. So this person runs a particular running road race, a famous running road race in Oklahoma every year. And he runs it to sort of reset a personal best every year. Like he's in it to win it kind of thing. And what we did is we said, let's not give up on training for the road race. But let's do something a little bit different with your mindset as you participate in the race. First, like let's get an appreciation for everyone that's in the race, not just you and the people who are beating you. So like when you're running the race, like let's high five the little kids along, the running route. And let's say thank you to all the police officers who volunteered to direct traffic, so you can run the race. And when you're done running the race, like take your place on the side of the road and like cheer the people still running on. And so he goes and he does this event, and like we mentally trained to kind of go through this process. And after the race, we get on a call. And he's telling me about the event and how like well it went. And he says, well, the only thing that didn't go as well is I was hoping to set my personal best by a minute, and I only set my personal best by 20 seconds. And I'm like, so wait a minute, you're telling me you took your foot off the gas, you did all these things like high-fived all the kids, you thanked all the police officers, you cheered the people on. He's like, yep, I did all that. I said, and on top of that, you set a personal best. And he goes, I did.
Wow.
And I'm like, this is it. Like, this is the path to like getting to 50 on a different route than the route you were on, a month ago. And I love telling that story because I never expected to have a client that young, that was engaging in this conversation. But here's the kind of the kicker about this whole conversation that I think you guys will find so interesting. I think part of the reason that we do what we do, and I think part of the reason that you guys have a podcast and you've created this community, is that we are dealing with problems at our stage of life that we're currently in. And the best thing that we could hope for in humanity is that the kids that are 20 or 30 years younger than us, when they get to our age, that the quality and level of problems that they're having because we're having this conversation is a more elevated level of problems than you and I are having right now. And if we do that, I mean, isn't that the exact definition of what human evolution is all about? That is why we're doing the conversation we're doing. That is why you guys are working so hard and writing the books and having the interviews and trying to create a resource for people to do better so that the people 20 or 30 years from now can start solving for problems that we're having now so that when they get to our age, they get to have a whole new set of problems that you and I can't even fathom right now.
It's all about this is so good. It's all about the bravery and the courage to talk about the things that no one talks about or very few talk about, but everyone thinks about.
Mm-hmm.
We got to get it out in the open. I mean, that's it. And by the way, again, the head is where we're really good at kind of storing it and keeping it locked up. When we move it down into the body and we get it closer to the heart, it's the only way that this comes out, Larry. It's the only way. It's the brain on its own is never going to agree to say, yeah, let's have this conversation and get it out into the open. No way is the brain going down that route. The heart, it's just a matter of giving the heart a chance to speak, which is like, that is the essence to me of, after all these years, it's so clear of what you guys are doing with this community that I think is so valuable and so beautiful.
Well, as we wrap this up, I'm thinking of yet another book. We're throwing a lot of books at folks today.
I already thought of one as well.
Arthur Brooks, From Strength
That's
to
the third
Strength,
one.
right? That would be the one. And Arthur talks about, and here's where I want to go with this. Arthur talks about moving from a life of being a producer to being a contributor, being someone who's getting it done. Arthur was a French horn player like my young son is. And he said, I got to a point where I practiced harder and harder and harder. I just wasn't getting any better. And he said, there's a moment in life where we make the shift to helping other people get better. And I think there's some folks listening in who have been producers that, maybe there's a call in the last half of your career to actually help people achieve what you achieved. And what I mean by that is to step into a genuine sales leadership role, not like I did in my mid-20s to get the title on my business card and failed miserably at, but to actually step in as a mentor and a sales leader that can come alongside younger people and help them be successful. I think there's a call there that maybe even some people listening into this podcast right now might go, you know what? Maybe it's time for me to make that shift in my career.
So Arthur's book, Strength to Strength, is going to be the third book that we put on that resource page.
Great.
And by the way, really cool fun fact about Arthur, that French horn career, and you know where the career ended? Was in Catalonia in Barcelona.
Really?
He told me the story. It's an amazing story. He did a speech for a client of mine. And through that, I sent Arthur a couple videos, which my client shared with Arthur, and Arthur reached back out and said, oh, my wife is from Barcelona. She's Catalan. And I was in Barcelona when the French horn actually came to an end, my dream there. But he goes, wow. But the first thing I did after that was I got hired to be on the production team of the opening ceremonies at the Olympic Games in 1992. So Arthur and I have that in common, which is cool. Really cool. But to get even more specific about Arthur, what he talks about is this fluid intelligence that we use in the first half of life. And then that we cannot sustain that. It shifts to what he calls crystallized intelligence. And that is where that sense of nurturing and passing things forward and mentoring and coaching and serving and legacy building all really comes into play. And yeah, it is, I think, so naturally. And I think at the root of all of this is that, I know I've said it a million times, it comes back to the brain, but we're really trying to kind of have, to kind of put some boundaries around our ego and start to get used to what it means to get older. And ultimately, and this is one of my big themes currently right now, is what does it mean to redefine high performance? Because likely the definition of high performance that you've been using for the last 20, 30, 40 years of your life has been a definition that was defined by someone else, defined by people you were watching on TV, playing at the highest level. And I just got to say, if you don't figure out a way to step in and define it for yourself on your own terms in those Arthur Brooks and Richard Rohr kind of ways, I think the second half and those future ending chapters of life are going to be hard. I think they're going to be really hard. They're going to feel like decomposition and disconnection and loss, and you're going to notice all these things going away. But if you have the courage to redefine what high performance really is for yourself in your own words and using your own heart, I think the opportunity for what you can do in the second half of life, it just leads you to feeling like the way I feel today. These last 6 years have been the best 6 years of my life, and I can't wait for more.
I love it.
Oh,
love it.
I like this. Hey, thank you so much for sharing. This has been a wonderful conversation. So y'all have dropped books, and I feel compelled to drop a book. Now I just have to.
Your turn, Larry.
Joe, I feel left out. Darrell, I feel left out. But I want to play on something that Joe just said about high performance. Because it's just in how my brain works. I think high performance is looking inward. And one of the best books I've just recently read on this is by Jim Murphy, and it's Inner Excellence. And it's such a great book that encapsulates high performance, but looking at it through the lens of looking inward, not outward.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
I love this. Well, let me just say, I mean, we've talked about some amazing resource. I would love to create a little resource sheet so you don't have to write all these notes down. If you just go to joejacobi.com/heart, all the resources we talked about, journaling framework, prompts that you can use in your own personal reflection, we will have that there for you. And most importantly, I think if people want to ask, continue the conversation, ask questions to me, ask questions to either of you. I just want to create the way to kind of keep this conversation going in a meaningful, heartfelt way.
Super powerful. We'll put those links in the show notes. Joe, thank you so much for sharing your heart with us today. This has been an incredible conversation. We really, really appreciate you.
Thank you for all that you're doing. You guys, I love you guys. Thank you.
Oh, same here. Bye, Joe.
Back at you. Larry, amazing conversation today. And I think topics that we need to be talking about, and we will talk about more in the months and years to come, because this shift as we move through our careers, and you and I are, we've crossed the 50-yard line. We feel this. There's a shift, and in order to navigate this correctly, we've got to move from our head to our heart. And what Joe coached us through today, incredibly powerful.
I totally agree. And I'll share this with you. And these are conversations, everyone, that Darrell and I have had, intimately over the years, because Darrell and I go back quite a ways. But I'll tell you this, because of me looking inward, I've had the best 10 years of my life. Mm-hmm. I'm 60 years old. I've had the best 10 years of my life. I've learned more about myself in the last 10 years than I did in my previous 30 plus years. And it's all because of the things that we've been talking about with Joe here today.
That's right. So thanks for joining us for this conversation. And we've got great things to come. So make sure to like and subscribe. And would you do us a favor? Leave a review on the podcast. Why? Simply because it helps us spread this message of authenticity and trust right here in this sales profession we all love. So thank you for joining us today. Till next time, keep being genuine, keep being authentic, keep building trust, navigate your midlife well, and most of all,
sell from the heart.